Welcome to episode 18 of the Hike or Die Outdoor Adventure Podcast. We're just about to enter into the second part of our interview with Andy Szollosi, adventurer from Tasmania. Hey Craig, do you remember when the second Matrix came out, part 2, and it was a bit crappy?
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's not what part 2 of this podcast is going to be like. Okay, go. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to another awesome episode. First, I want to thank our sponsors, Topo Maps Plus. Go deeper into the backcountry. It's a topographical map app that allows you to track your location even without cell phone coverage. And Craig, I actually have a really cool story about that later in the podcast. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you also, Rios Floating Polarized Sunglasses with 100% UV protection for the love of water. Hey, I also learnt, Craig, what Rios means. I was looking it up the other day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's a Greek word meaning river current.
Oh, right.
And they pride themselves on this philosophy that no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he's not the same man.
Oh, that's cool.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Also, Bluey Merino, where our story ends, yours is just beginning. Australian superfine merino wool, bottom, mid and top layer garments. They actually have a couple of new products they've just released recently, Craig, and I will talk more about that in Gear Talk.
Oh, cool.
Last but not least, Caribee, one of Australia's most well-known leading backpack, travel and outdoor brands. They also supply us with our dry bags, waterproof day packs and expedition bags. We have a sponsor for this particular episode today, and they are called tripoutside.com. Have you ever heard of them, Craig?
No, mate, I honestly haven't.
No, you wouldn't have heard of them because they have recently launched what they're calling the fastest growing adventure gear rental website. What it is, it allows the customers to book outdoor gear online from the best local outfitters in over 60 of the top adventure destinations across North America. It allows you to compare the rental prices of some of the outfitters and also to book the gear through the website. You can visit them at tripoutside.com. Jump on Instagram, follow the guys, jump on Facebook, say good day, tell them where you heard about it. Very good. Thanks, guys. All right, Craig, how you been, mate?
Oh, mate, I'm doing great, thanks. Doing really well, feeling good.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
You've been all right. Well, we haven't spoken for a few weeks, but
Yeah, well, I think last time I'd just been, feeling a bit sick, and now
yeah, that's right.
For once I'm feeling like 100%.
Yeah, I was a little bit used to you kind of complaining every episode. So
I'm bloody always sick.
I'm in shock. Having said that, you've got a piece of your face missing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was hoping you wouldn't notice that.
Well, it's not so much noticing, it's noticing what's gone. Craig just had a sun cancer cut out of the top of his nose.
Yeah.
So, lost a bit of weight, mate. That's good. Easy done. Went under the knife.
I hope it doesn't make me look ugly.
Well, I thought it was for cosmetic reasons.
An improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
I've got a, what do you call it when you say something wrong? An amendment? Something like that. There's a better word for it. I was trying to explain a wooden cup in a previous episode. I'm not sure if it was the last one or the one before. And I was struggling to say the word correctly. And I went back today and it's kuksa is what I was trying to say. It also goes by the name of guksi, or in Swedish it's a kasa. So yeah, it's just a traditional
wooden cup.
Yeah.
It's a kuksa.
Kuksa, yeah, that's the word I was trying to say, but I did not say kuksa at the time.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening in that last podcast or whatever it was, either saying, you idiot, that's not how you say it, or running around telling their friends they know this new word, then I apologise. Kuksa is what I was trying to say. Now, here's a bit of a a joining of a couple of podcasts. Do you remember our good friend Thomas Evil
Yeah, because he
from
uses
Outdoor Sweden?
something
Yes,
like that.
he does.
I was going to say that.
Exactly. And he was telling us about the Sami people, which are kind of like these indigenous people that live on the outskirts of civilization up there in Sweden. And when I did a bit of research today, the Sami people are actually from northern Scandinavia, used to carve them from a birch burl. Now, our good friend Josh would be going nuts right now because he loves a good burl. A burl's when you get that kind of knot on the side of a tree.
Yeah.
And if you actually cut them off and grind into them, there's these amazing swirling patterns. But the cookser that Thomas had was from Ayo, who are the Norwegian, where they make hatchets, they make cooksers, they make fantastic knives. Yeah, they're really cool.
All right.
But I just love how all of those stories kind of, when I did a bit of research, they all kind of joined back together. And I thought I would correct my wrong.
Right, you've always got to correct your wrongs. There's no
Always
doubt
got to
about
correct
it.
my wrongs. I thought I'd said something wrong on the last podcast again. And I went back and checked my notes and I'd said it correctly. So there's only one correction today. Thank goodness. Hey, mate, how about these bushfires?
Oh, man, actually tragic. Yeah.
Not cool.
Not cool.
At all. We're getting smashed by it's coming into summer. In fact, I'd go as far as to say we're not even quite we're only just coming out of winter. So we're only just in spring and we're getting the equivalent of what I would say would be serious midsummer bushfires. And they're not far away from civilization like you normally expect. Ever since I was a kid, you kind of hear about bushfires and they're way out in the country or something. But these are now pushing into suburbs.
And I thought you were moving towards, the heartfelt, mourning for our beloved Binnerborough.
Well, I wasn't, but when I first read the article, it said a popular eco-tourism resort, and I didn't even click that it would be Binnerborough, but then I saw it on the news and thought, oh, wow, that's not cool.
Yeah, one of my favourite places close by here, lush rainforest and a beautiful resort.
Resort that's nestled into the forestry, and I guess that was their demise as well.
Heritage listed buildings got destroyed.
I saw a photograph, and all that was left was the stone kind of fireplace and chimney.
Yeah, man.
And I guess that's something. Hopefully, they build back around that in some shape or form. I would like to think that it comes back stronger.
Yeah, they're going to rebuild it. Yeah, so that's what, when you said the fires, that's where my heart went. But then, it's been shocking, hasn't it?
It's pretty brutal. And they're not small. Did you see the footage of a place called Perigian?
Yeah.
We're talking about a surfside town.
Huge fire.
And it looked like, so the footage was shot at night, and it looked like snow, except it was swirling embers.
Yeah.
And just blowing across the road like it was crazy. Mm-hmm. So I've got relatives up there, and thankfully that's all kind of simmered down today. But it's I've also got a hike planned in a couple of weeks at Lamington, which is obviously where Binnerborough is, that got taken out by the fire. So I've been keeping a close watch on that. It's not going to take much rain or anything, because it's a rainforest area, to kind of put it back in the safe zone, but still it's something I've got to keep an eye on. Yes. What else have you been up to?
I was going to say that I got out for an awesome little night out with my 5-year-old son by the creek.
Oh, I saw a photo of that.
Yeah, open fire, mud crabbing, open swag under the stars.
Nice.
It was perfect, mate. We had a fantastic time. And yeah, I'm going to start making moves to ramp up all of our family adventures from now on. I think even this particular outing, it was like magical, I think, and such a positive sort of experience for the kid, eh?
Oh yeah, they lap it up too.
Yeah.
I remember that time we took. Did I have all three of mine? I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had all three, and
Yep.
you had just your
Just
boy.
one, just Elliot.
And yeah, they love that stuff. Can't get enough of it.
I almost enjoyed it as much as going on adventures with you, mate.
Oh wow, I might be replaced. If you're smart, you'll replace me. Speaking about hiking with kids,
Oh, yeah.
we did a little 2K trail run yesterday.
All right.
Yesterday, Arvo.
Yeah.
And you know how I've been walking barefoot and
Oh,
stuff?
yeah.
I did the 2K run barefoot down the trail.
Okay.
And it went really well. It's the weirdest feeling in one sense. You're obviously extremely exposed, and your feet are sensitive, and you'll hit little sticks and stuff and kind of grimace a bit. But the payoffs were far beyond that. My feet were a little bit tender this morning, but it just felt right, and so it should, you know.
Yeah, no, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to fulfill my, request.
Because you've been sick.
Well, yeah, but also I run at night. And you had asked me, for those who are new listeners, I've been testing my left ankle, for a little while now, hoping to build some strength in it. And Tom suggested that I run barefoot and see how my ankle reacts and responds to that. And because I run late at night when it's dark, I was a bit concerned about taking my shoes off and running around in it.
That's not a bad point.
So, and it's wet and cold and stuff. So.
Oh, gee, don't get your feet wet.
But luckily, I found a chance at midday on a weekend, and I just finished 5K and took my shoes off and ran around the AFL field.
Oh, yeah.
Did a lap, and it was it was a big difference.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I was going to say it's kind of like getting out of Anna's car and then getting into my bumpy old Jeep. It's sort of, you feel the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's part of first of all, I think it's part of the attraction, but I also think it's part of the inbuilt mechanism that we have deliberately to slow us down so that, for example, do you heel strike? Have I asked you this before? Do you heel strike?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
You're not sure if you do?
I'm not sure.
So when your foot lands, does your heel? Do you really stretch that front leg out and your heel hits, and then your ball of your foot comes down?
Good question, mate. I'd have to study it. I do wear a little bit out on my heel, so I think I kind of bring it through.
So you naturally, if you run barefoot, you cannot heel strike because the pain is so bad instantly that you couldn't heel strike for 20 metres because you'd have to stop.
That might be why I was feeling quite a little bit of jarring from the
So what you need to do is
up on your toes.
Keep your keep your legs under you instead of out reaching in front of you. Keep them under you and push backwards. That's the running style. That's why I asked you to take your shoes off. If you can adopt that running style, then put your shoes back on.
Oh, sorry. I
think it's going to take the jarring off your ankle. There's Dr. Tom here. I don't know jack shit about podiatry, but I've just noticed. I just noticed that we'll put it this way. I just did a 2K run on the trail with no shoes on.
Yeah,
and feel great today because when it got to certain parts where the ground was harder, I'd automatically take shorter steps and lighter steps and slow down a bit because your feet are sensitive and they're saying, hey, don't run down that hill smashing your heels into the ground. But when you protect the foot, you tend to get all these bad habits. And I know there's going to be people listening just tearing their hair out going, that's not right. That's because you can't run properly. That's okay. Each to their own. It works for me. I love minimal shoes and I enjoy feeling the dirt. I'd say it's a simple pleasure that as adults we miss. Think about how many people As soon as so they don't live near the beach. As soon as they get to the beach, they flick the shoes or the sandals off, and they want to feel that sand between the toes. That's because we don't do it anymore. And that's what it's like for me when I walk down the trail with no shoes on. It's enjoyable.
Yeah, no, I did actually feel that it was. Yeah, I enjoyed it for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
that's good, man. Oh, thanks for doing it. I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you didn't hurt yourself doing it.
Oh, well, the good news is, man, I've cured myself. I have seriously reached a point where I've got so much strength in that ankle now that it just, I don't know, the more I run, the better it gets.
Yeah.
So I've somehow worked through that injury or that issue.
That's really good.
Yeah, so it's happy days.
You remember my knee problems on my first overland track, don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would wake up in seething in pain just because I straightened my leg. And I decided to spend a lot of time strengthening my legs. And in doing so, it seemed to strengthen everything around the knee. And I don't have knee problems now I'm running. It's incredible.
Yeah, you used to wear a brace on your knee.
I used to wear a brace on my knee.
Yeah.
I've got 2 at home. I bought 2 brand new ones for the second time I hiked, thinking that, by the time I get to 3rd or 4th day, I'm going to need these knee braces. They sat in my pack the entire trip. It didn't happen. I'd done so much strength training and weird kind of oblique stuff and lunges and all this sort of stuff that's not symmetrical. They're just so much stronger. Yeah, good on you, man.
Yeah, no, it seemed counterintuitive to kind of keep going, but that's what you
It's
have
weird, isn't
to
it?
do.
Yeah,
You should stop when it hurts, but no, you had to build that strength up. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in a controlled manner, but yeah, it's good, man. I like it.
I'm still not fit enough. Still got to get fit. Anyway, getting there.
Speaking of being fit enough, I did that hike.
Yeah, how was it?
It was 55 kilometres over 2 days. Sorry, I didn't write down the miles, but 32.5 kilometres one day, 22.5 the second day. You know, the funny thing, mate, is because it was only day packs and we're used to having, 20, 25 kilo full packs.
Yeah.
I just wore my low cut Speed Cross 4s.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even wear hiking boots. I just wore my trail runners and had a 1.5 litre reservoir in my backpack with a few snacks. And yeah, it was a long day and definitely felt a bit worn out at the end of it. But, and the second day, yeah, I guess it was tough to get out of bed and go and do 22.5, which is just over a half marathon. But we all did it. Yeah, we finished. The team finished. We raised over, I think we clocked up, I don't want to get this wrong. I think we thought we made $9,000 for the Leukemia Foundation, but when all the everything was counted, I think we clocked up over 10, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
That all goes straight to them. So,
perfect. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It was good, but what I learned in that was, you think about these, these 50 kilometre and 100 kilometre races.
Yeah.
And they'll do the 50 kilometre over, say, 24 hours sort of thing.
All right.
And I thought, well, hang on, I walked and took regular breaks with the team and sat down and had lunch for 20 minutes. And we did that in 32.5 Ks in daylight hours.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, if you go from 32 to 50, it's not that much further. And even at walking pace, you'd be able to complete that.
Yeah.
So I'm really starting to consider this, too late for it this year, but there's a Blackall 50 trail run next year around this time. So it gives me a year to get ready, and it gives you a year to get ready.
Right. Just put in a casual pace.
Yeah. And we'll put it this way. If you know you can walk it, then if you're jogging, parts of it just to basically purely just to cut your time down.
Yeah.
I think it's doable. That made me think that it's doable.
Yeah, so those big numbers like 50K or whatever, you think
Sounds ridiculous.
You couldn't enjoy that, but if you strip it back a little and don't kill yourself, you could probably enjoy it.
Well, when I did that half marathon on the trail, I did kill myself and I didn't enjoy it, and I tried to run as much as I possibly could, even uphill, which in hindsight I think was a stupid idea, lack of experience. But I think on something like a 50, you could just run the flats and downhills and walk the uphills, and you would cut hours and hours off your time. And you should be able to sustain it, and you should be able to keep your calories up and your energy up.
I never really thought of it that.
No, neither did I. So I'm pretty grateful for being a part of that for various reasons. Hey, Richard Matthews, our lovely guest from episode 16.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. He's been quite busy. He's been all over the country in the UK doing his, guiding young people in the wilderness and stuff. But he also wrote a short story that has been published as part of a book called The Bigger Book of Yes, 22 Short Adventure Stories. So there was originally this book called The Big Book of Yes, and I'm assuming that came out a few years ago. But this one, The Bigger Book of Yes, has just come out, and he was asked to be a guest writer and write one of the 22 short stories. So
cool.
Yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes if you want to jump on Amazon and get yourself a copy. He was a top bloke, and I know a lot of you enjoyed that podcast, and he certainly did, and we certainly did. So yeah, support that if you can. I actually want to get myself a copy of that one.
Oh, that sounds good.
Oh, we're just cranking through it tonight, mate. I got a PSA. You know what a PSA is? Public service announcement. The other day I was mucking around with my GoPro Hero 7 and realised that they've brought out quite a significant update in the firmware. So if you do own a GoPro Hero 7, well, this is probably 2 weeks ago now, but yeah, jump on there. The easiest way to do it is to go through the app on your phone and just go through the settings and just update the firmware, and it'll just connect to the camera and do it all. I'll put a link to the GoPro website, which has step-by-step instructions. I just thought I'd mention that because it was a significant difference for me. Have you done it yet?
No, I did something with my gimbal the other day, the Karma grip, but I didn't.
Yeah, you should jump on it. Well, even if just you do it, then it's been worth telling it.
You could have just sent me a text about that, man.
I could just send you a text, but I chose to do it on a grand scale.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. I know there's a lot of adventure camera owners out there. Hey, did you see that video of that bison attack? I'm sorry to say it in a kind of laughing tone, but since nobody got hurt, it is a little bit funny.
I've heard about it a number of times, so there was a child involved too.
Yeah, it was a kid. It was she's probably a bit about the age of your son, maybe just a year older.
Really?
And her parents are filming her going right up to this bison, and this thing is big. Like, it's bigger than a horse. It's like a full-grown bull. Like, it's massive, right?
Righto.
And she ends up, it's a wild animal, and they go closer and closer and closer and closer, and then it just gets jack of having her, and it just kind of runs towards her and flicks her up in the air with its head, and thankfully she just lands in the grass and everything's all good. Okay, so I'm not laughing about that, but what I did see was...
that sounds hilarious.
It is actually a little bit funny.
Oh, jeez.
We're going to get emails about that.
That's going
I'll put them in the list.
It's not funny.
Remind me, I got a story about an email too.
Oh, yeah, another one.
Yeah, no, the same one. Can you remind me of that?
Okay.
Just write a note or something. I don't have pen today. Anyway, the Wilderness Society it has put together a really cool little meme. Not a meme, I don't know, just a just a little thing on their Facebook page, and it's a wildlife petting chart. I got a picture over there to show you. It's basically, you know how you see it's basically divided up into sections, almost like when you see how to
butcher something.
Yeah, so it's a silhouette of a bison, and then it's cut up into sections. But it's got like, for example, on the top of it, so it's a wildlife petting chart. On the top it says nope, and then under its chin it's got how fast are you, and then on its back it's got think again. Anywhere under its belly is do you have insurance. On its shoulder is vacation over. On the back is ouch and no. I thought it was a really clever way of pointing out something that a lot of us, I guess, let's call people with some common sense, take for granted, but other people don't. I just thought that was a really clever way without, laughing at the people like you just did before. That's something clever. I'm not sure if I can share that image in the show notes, but I'll put a link to the Facebook page where it is or something. It's really cool. Well done to Wilderness Society.
Yeah, don't pat the bison.
Don't pat bisons or anything, really, I guess.
Should I remind you about that email now, or?
Remind me when we get to shout-outs.
Okay, I'll make a little note of that then.
Thank you, yeah. It's good having you around. I've specifically put my news in a certain order so that I finish on a happy note.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because you always have a go at me about that. But it's about to get nasty. There was a photograph of this couple who was scratching love hearts and stuff into this sandstone cliff. It's a place called the Council Overhang, and forgive me for not writing what state it is and everything. Illinois. A 425 million year old sandstone formation in this national park. It's been used for the last 8,000 years as a Native American gathering place. Beautiful sandstone kind of cliffs in a narrow gorge. These clowns have gone in and scratched. They've used a burnt stick and scratched love hearts and their initials and stuff.
Really?
And then put pictures on Instagram and everything.
Oh, they put pictures up themselves?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, so clever.
Yeah, there's one that at the end of the article, it said police have not confirmed if the images are real or something like that. So I guess, but they found the girl, and now they're basically using her to find out who the guy is and question them. And obviously, I guess they'll go and check the location and everything. Really, I mean, sad is not even the word for it. I just can't. There's so many words that I can't say on this podcast that I want to use for people like that. Anyway, I hope they get, I hope justice is done. I hope they sort them out, and I hope that maybe there's a way to restore that area or something. I don't know. Yeah, that's a bit of a downer, eh?
Jeez, I wonder how. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to have a huge impact on that site, but
you can't.
You can't undo it.
You can't remove it.
Can't undo it.
I mean, the best they could do is go to those small sections and kind of scrape it away a bit more to make it flat again or make it look kind of natural. But it will have to be scraped out to be removed. It's half an inch deep, this carvings.
Really?
Yeah, it's horrific. I remember there was some crazy lady, and I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast about a year ago, who was going around and painting on rocks and stuff at famous places and saying she was an artist, and everyone was losing it because she's going into national parks and painting on these rocks. Imagine going to somewhere like Girraween or something and some idiots painted on Balancing Rock or unbelievable.
Yeah, but you do see it, eh? You do see clowns doing it like
You do,
Rocky Hole and stuff like that.
yeah,
I think
yes, yeah,
just even if it's just into some of the guardrails and stuff like that, it's all
yeah.
yeah. But anyway,
It takes away from the experience, which perfectly dovetails into my next. I found this article. You're gonna love this article, Craig, because it's one of my rants. The title of the article, the headline: Conservationists want you to stop building rock piles.
oh
Yes, the cans.
yeah, the cans. That's what they're called.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was the Leave No Trace episode we did where I banged on about them, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure. I think even
I'm
a
sure
couple
it was
of times.
probably a couple of times. I don't like it. I did a bit of research on it today, and cans is a Gaelic word that specifically means a pile of rocks for directional navigation. So when these idiots go down and pile up rocks in a riverbed or something, it just doesn't mean anything. It's not a can. It's just a pile of rocks. It disturbs wildlife. It disturbs nature. And what really frustrates me is when I get to a place that I've hiked half a day to get to, and everything's pristine, and then there's a pile of rocks. I think, well, it's not like I expected to be the first person there. I'm not that naive. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
But it's about the experience of feeling like the environment is untouched, right? I think for me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah, this article, I'll put a link to it, obviously. And then I was reading another article, coincidentally, on the Leave No Trace website. This is a pure coincidence. And they said that in the US, somewhere in the US, there's this salamander called the Eastern Hellbender salamander. It's got an epic kind of heavy metal name, which I like already. And it looks pretty cool. It can live up to 30 years and is often found under the same rock its entire life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How
Really?
cool is that?
That's cool.
And they go on to say that on occasions where their rock is disturbed or flipped up or moved or something, you know, someone wants to make a seat or whatever, it can really disrupt their entire life. It's literally like the house they grew up in.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy. Yeah, I just love how I happen to read those at the same time.
Yeah, it ties in.
Yeah, they tie in. Yeah, so you're making notes. Are they notes for later, or you're just going to look up cool stuff later about that Eastern Hellbender salamander?
I must see this salamander.
You need a tattoo of it across your chest, I reckon.
No, I've got a couple of reminders here. I do want to show you this picture I've got to go back to the Binnaburra fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
When you say you've got
I've got it right here. And I was going to show it to you before, and then I forgot I had it. Have you seen that yet?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Look at that.
Yeah, so it's a before and after of exactly the same.
From the same position.
Same position, looking up this, well, in the top picture, it's this beautiful little eco lodges with beautiful trees and ferns around them. And in the second one, it's just a road with substantially more trees than I expected to be left there, but still, it's desolate. Wow, that's where we went. And were you with me that time we got the keys for that campsite? That was from that building there.
Oh, I've stayed in there.
Yeah, I've never have. But remember we went into that main hall to get the keys?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's that beautiful
that's gone, man.
big hall.
I think that's where only the fireplace stack of rocks.
Yeah, it's really sad.
That's not very cool.
No. Anyway, where were you?
Oh, I was going to get onto some good news stuff,
Okay.
mate.
All right.
Punch out some good news.
Let's do it.
There's a website that I follow on Facebook. They're called Bush Heritage, Bush Heritage It's an Australian website. It's a conservation type website where they put a lot of time and effort back into looking after Australian wildlife. They set up trail cams and to basically just record different movements of animals, learn what's about, learn about feral pests, all those sorts of things, right?
Mm.
There's this bird called it's an ulwal. Well, that's the Aboriginal name for it. It's a golden-shouldered parrot. Looks like that, Craig.
Oh,
Pretty
cool.
little thing. It looks like you got just a black and white sheet of paper and said to your kid, hey, colour in this parrot. And they've just grabbed every single section. They've grabbed another pen to colour it. Different ridiculously bright aqua colour.
Yeah.
And you look at the picture and you go, it's not that great. You've got some improving to do in your colouring. But when you look at this bird, it's actually perfect.
Yeah.
Beautiful little thing. So they set up these trail cameras. This little parrot actually nests in termite mounds by drilling a little hole and digging it all out, and they'll make a nest inside the termite mound. A termite mound is, for those of you who don't know, in Australia they can be straight up off the ground, and they can, they're sometimes 10, 12, 15 foot or something, aren't they? Those ones, Northern Territory and stuff.
Oh, they're huge.
Yeah.
Tall as a vehicle.
Massive, yeah. Huge things. Huge structures where these termites bring up mud and various other stuff and make these structures. Anyway, they burrow into this mud-like structures and have their nest in there. They're heavily predated by goannas.
All right.
Goannas can stand up on their tail, and and they've got massive claws, they can climb as well. If they can get their head in, like there's images of them grabbing either chicks and reefing them out, or grabbing the actual parrots, or getting the eggs. But this absolutely incredible kind of phenomenon was captured on camera where this particular dingo was patrolling and protecting this nest, chasing away goannas and other predators, not trying to get the birds or anything for itself, absolutely not going anywhere near the birds, but somehow being responsible for keeping all the other animals away until these, I guess you call them fledglings or something, don't you? Babies were at a point where they could actually fly.
Yeah.
And they all left the nest, and then the dingo was just on its way. But they captured on camera multiple times this same dingo protecting this termite mound and scaring away.
What's that all about?
I don't know. I think it's just one of those beautiful things that we don't know a lot about the nature because, it's only been the last, really, say the last 5 years, if you want to be, where an organisation like that can afford 100 cameras, right?
Righto.
I'm not just talking about, the one camera's worth, sure, 20 years ago you could have paid $30,000 for one time-lapse camera that you put in one place. But with the addition of these trail cams and how cheap they are, an organisation like this might put out, I don't know, maybe they put out 200, 300. I've heard of other organisations putting out 1,000 across the Northern Territory to monitor stuff.
Yeah, right.
That would have been previously impossible because the technology wasn't there, and certainly not the affordability wasn't there.
Yeah, cool.
So only now we're seeing things that we think are amazing, and oh wow, that's never seen that before. Well, perhaps it's been happening for 1,000 years. We just don't know about it. Pretty cool, man. Eh?
That is cool.
Told you I had a happy story.
All right.
So I'm going to go to even happier story.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the headline. She can't walk and he can't see, but together they climb mountains.
Oh,
This is hilarious. This is great. I love it. Melanie and Trevor are hiking buddies, and they're both from Colorado. Melanie was born with spina bifida, and Han lost his eyesight 5 years ago due to glaucoma disease.
jeez.
So they met at... so Trevor actually did continue to hike, and he'd have friends come out with a bell and they'd ring it, and he'd kind of follow that. He was into the outdoors prior to that, as was Melanie, I think, from the article. Anyway, they met at this last year at this course for adaptive exercise, they call it, which I guess is just learning to live with your disability or work around it, I guess. That's my assumption, by the way. Anyway, they met, and they were kind of talking about their shared passion for nature and the outdoors, and they decided that they should kind of undertake hiking as a bit of a team. And her quote is, Melanie says, "To us, teaming up to do this just seemed like common sense."
Excellent.
So he puts his backpack on, and she basically gets in the backpack, and he can't see, and she just directs him, just hangs over his shoulder and just says, "Oh, watch out for the rock, and watch out for this, watch out for that."
Truly.
It's just
That's
so cool,
cool.
man. I know, it's just the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, you guide me through some places sometimes.
It's kind of quite
like
often
that.
I'm carrying you on my back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw parallels.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was awesome.
That's
you can
good.
follow them on Instagram, hiking_with_site. Again, any of this, you don't remember it because you're driving or doing something, just go to the show notes. On HikeordieTV.com on the podcast page, choose the episode, and you'll get all this cool stuff. Yeah, how
good.
cool's that? Ending on a
Yeah.
high, man.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
I knew you'd like that. It's time for gear talk. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, you go, because I haven't got too much to add to this.
You don't, it's all right. You can go for it, mate. If you got something.
No, you tell me what you've been looking up, please.
Oh, this was, first of all, this was by chance. I happened to be on the Merrill shoes website, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I didn't realise they had a tactical boot range. Have a look at that bad boy. So, there's a whole range of them, low cuts, high cuts,
That's cool.
various different things, and they come in desert tan and all of that. I just had no idea that they ventured down that path, but I thought they were pretty hardcore looking shoes, boots, really.
Yeah, it's full blacked out. I
Full
like that.
black, yeah, full blackout, and then the desert tan is full desert tan, like not a speck of black cleats or anything. It's all desert tan. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just wondered if you'd heard of that.
Well, I've seen Salomon do that as well.
Oh, really? I did see. I wasn't familiar with that.
No, so you could get the what are they called? The G4s,
The one
4Ds,
40 Max.
the
or
Quest.
whatever. Yeah.
You can get them in a black.
You
stealth.
did tell me that. I didn't realise that was part of a kind of a full tactical range.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're 4.
Because if you go to this Merrill boot range, I'm talking like 15 boots or something.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it's for like police and defence and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this
believe.
is quite similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, if I had to spend my days in boots for
that'd be
as a
good.
security guard or something, yeah, I'd definitely go down the route of using a modified hiking boot. Well, a hiking boot company, because you just know that they're used to supporting people on their feet all day.
For sure. Yeah,
That
that
was-
looks cool.
That was an unpaid sponsorship. No, I just thought it was interesting. What I was alluding to earlier was the with Bluey Merino. They've actually released 2 products in the last couple of months this year. One of them's a puffer vest, right? But think about a puffer vest, you're thinking of like a synthetic inner, synthetic outer, and then and the expensive model is like a duck down or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or a cheaper one might be synthetic inside.
Yeah.
This thing's got, excuse me, 100% merino outer and inner layers.
Mm.
And then the puffy bit of the puffer is 80% merino, 20% polyester blend to give it loft. So I just thought that was an insane concept. And they've also developed a tighter or a more unique weave, which is a bit more water repellent as it stands, and also wind resistant. Anyway, it's a vest, and
Jeez, that looks nice.
Imagine how warm that'd be.
That would be so warm.
I know, right? Like, we just wear just the t-shirts and we're warm. Imagine that.
Yeah.
I reckon it's kick-ass.
Yeah, for sure.
They also have got a new jacket out, like a hoodie. It looks like a hoodie. They call it the Overland jacket. 100% merino wool. The hood is double lined, and again, it uses that new kind of weave that they've created, which is showerproof and wind resistant. And then up in the hood part there, it's got that high kind of chin guard. So if you zip it right up, it comes up high almost to your mouth. And then it's got little elastic toggles where you can cinch down that hood right down tight.
All right.
And it's a pretty cool looking thing.
That is.
Zip pocket. I can imagine that. Because I've actually got what they call the urban hoodie. You've seen me wear that. It's like a dark grey, 100% merino. It is warm.
Warm as, yeah.
Yeah, it's warm, real warm. But these ones having that tighter weave to stop that cut through from the wind would be pretty epic.
Oh, that's cool.
What do you got in your list?
Mate, I actually am not very well prepared for this section this time. I haven't... The only thing I've been doing a bit of research in, and I actually... because I had to buy some, was some new headlamps, because I bought some for my dad for Father's Day, and for Anna's dad for Father's Day. I got some of the Petzl Actic Core, so they got the battery that's rechargeable in it, and you can swap it out for general AAA batteries.
Yeah, that's the one I've got, yeah.
Yeah, so I got them a decent one of them, and so that started me thinking about what I should be using when I'm running at night. And then I got looking at some of the Now, which is a Petzl one with the battery at the back.
Yep.
And they go up to some crazy, like 600 or 800 lumens or something ridiculous.
So you just pretty much got to,
like
at
Spotlight.
this time of year, you got to watch out. You're not starting your own bushfires.
Yeah,
you look like that. What's that dude in X-Men? Is it Cyclops or something?
All right, yeah.
He turns his head and just burns down stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've just been looking a little bit at that stuff, but I haven't got much else for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's all good. I do like those Petzls. I mean, I more than like it, and I love that core battery. It is absolutely epic.
Yeah.
It takes so long to charge.
Oh, does it?
Oh, yeah, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. It takes, if you put that on charge, in the afternoon, the next morning, it'll probably just be charged.
Okay.
But when you use it, it lasts forever. Forever. I'll take it on, I'll charge it, and I'll do a couple of trail runs at night a week, and I'll charge it once every 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, right.
And I'm out there sometimes for an hour and a half at a time with it on.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah,
The battery quality must be insane, the density and everything.
Yeah, because that my Petzl's got the battery sort of built into it. You can remove it, but you can't put AAAs in it.
Yeah, that's what I like about is that if you're...
core sort of setup.
If you're somewhere and your core fails, or you don't have a USB charger or something, or you forget your cable, you can stop in any service station, town or whatever, get yourself 3 AAAs, bang, you're back in business.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to
It's
travel.
Good gear, eh?
Yes. Oh, that's good, mate. Tom's Magical Media Mashup.
For sure. What do you got for us?
Oh man, I've written this here. I forgot mystery.
It is a mystery.
It
It's
is a
always a
mystery.
mystery, actually.
Tom's Mystery. No, Tom's Magical Mystery Media Mashup. Oh, goodness me.
Get it right.
I got to get my own segment right. Don't I?
What do you got for
I
us?
was having a laugh when I was writing, getting prepared and everything yesterday. I thought, I'm almost going to have another segment called Tom's Rants, the way I'm going. Okay, I got this. I stumbled across it. It's another Salomon TV, one of the series. I've showed you one of those before. Yeah, really cool. They do great little mini films. There's this trail run called Mount Marathon, and it's in a small harbour town of Seward, Alaska. It's only a 5-kilometre race, okay?
Right.
3.1 miles. It's only 5Ks. You can run 5Ks.
Yeah.
Piece of cake. Easy.
Right.
The elevation gain is 921 metres, 3,022 feet. Over, well, put it this way, that's 5 kilometres return. So it's 3.1 miles return. So half of that, you're doing almost a kilometre vertical.
Yeah, right.
And it's brutal too. I'll show you this screenshot. The record currently stands at 41 minutes, 26 seconds. Look at this.
Oh, that's too much.
Isn't that insane?
I love that some have got no shirts on and stuff.
Yeah, they got no shirts. They're absolutely insane. They're absolutely insane. And what's it just looks like people mountain climbing.
Yeah.
But what's cool is they go up this way.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of scrambling, I'd say. And then they come down another way, which is a long 45-degree scree slopes of kind of this grey slate. And these guys are sliding and tumbling and tripping and rolling and just coming down, and people are coming across the finish line covered in mud, covered in blood, cuts. It's absolutely just brutal and hilarious, and I think it's just so cool. Okay. And so this video features, obviously it's a Salomon video. Again, this has got a pretty cool link up. Remember that book I was telling you that I just read, that Skyrunner? Well, I think Emily Forsberg is how you pronounce her name. Her and her partner, Kilian Jornet, I believe it's pronounced, they went to this Mount Marathon, and they both broke the records on the same day. Like, they're just absolute freaks. Only just has this year, I believe, Kilian's record was beaten by 30 seconds. But yeah, the year they went, which must have been last year, I'm guessing, when was this video put up? Oh no, 2016, I take that back. That's quite a few years back. So in the year they went, in 2016, they both went there for the first time and busted the record. And only this year has someone overtaken it. But yeah, it's insane. You got to watch that one, Craig.
Yeah, right.
Only goes for 10 minutes. It's great, and it's actually put together really well. It's a good documentary. All right, something completely different. Nordic nut bread. I can't tell you how I came across this. I don't know how I was deep in the web, right? Deep.
Lost.
Deep in part 2 of The Matrix.
Yeah.
And somehow I come across this YouTube video. I do like making my own trail food sometimes. Our mate Josh gave us a big bag of trail mix that, he does it from scratch, picks the exact ingredients he wants and the ratios he wants and mixes them all together in a bag. And I love that sort of stuff. I have toyed with making my own kind of granola bar style thing, muesli bar style things in the past. A bit hit and miss, but this Nordic nut bread, there's a channel I found on YouTube called, it's KVALI. I'm assuming it's Vali or Kali. One of those letters has to be silent. Let's call it Vali food. And check this out, man. Like, it's basically just nuts, eggs, and oil. Look at this density of, you're basically looking at, it looks like you've made a brick out of nuts, and then you just sliced it, and you're just looking at the end grain of an insane amount of pepitas, pumpkin seeds, almonds, Brazil nuts, basically whatever. There's what are those little ones called? Poppy seeds, maybe? Definitely got sesame seeds in there. Sorry, sunflower, you're right.
So is this a video you've looked at, or is this a book? Sorry.
No, it's a video. There's a video of how to make it. That's how I found it.
That's a screenshot or something?
No, this is a link to the recipe.
Oh, yeah.
So I will not only... There's
there
a video
it is.
there, yeah. So I won't just share the video on the show notes, but I'll also... you can get all the ingredients. Look at all the stuff in there. Now, think about when you're on the trail, pound for pound, nuts, sunflower seeds, eggs, olive oil, a bit of salt too. So that's always good on the trail. I just thought, man, this stuff's just crack cocaine for trail for hikers.
Yeah, it would be. So you should try and make some.
I'm going to make some.
Bring it along.
I'll make it.
Bring it along next time.
I am, mate. I'm going to make it.
Don't just talk about it.
No, I'll do it, and I'll let everyone know how it goes.
That does sound good. Yeah,
it's just packed full. It's basically, instead of carrying a bag of nuts, you've just made it into a brick.
Yeah.
It's just easier to carry.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was pretty epic, and it actually reminded me of bannock bread. Remember when I make bannock bread for you one time?
Mate, you're going to have to remind me, because I know that I've heard that before.
Yeah, what's cool about bannock bread, and I got this recipe off what's it? Mind Wiseman, I think, is his YouTube channel. He's kind of like this kind of prepper sort of dude in the UK, I think. And I just saw it on he was just canoeing down a river, and he says, I'm making bannock bread. And what was really, really good about it, and I'll put a link to this video, is you can take all the ingredients dry with you, and you can cook it on the trail when you get to your destination, so you don't have to cook it and take it. So you basically, and I've done this, I did this up at Alex's farm one time by myself, but I think I've done it with you.
I think you have to. It rings a bell.
So basically bannock bread is...
It's like a damper, is it? Or?
Yeah, very similar to a damper. It doesn't rise like damper, and you cook it straight in the pan, but you basically take a big Ziploc bag, like a massive Ziploc bag with your flour, chopped almonds, chopped cranberries, again, just all different kinds of nuts, all those really kind of, full of nutritional value and all that sort of stuff. And then what you do then is you work out how much milk it would need. And instead of putting milk in, you work out how much milk powder you need. So you just put milk powder in there. Then when you're on the trail, you get to your destination, light yourself a little fire and get your pan out. All you got to do is add water. That's going to create milk with the milk powder. It's going to mix in with the flour and all the nuts and berries that you put in, and bake this really delicious kind of sweet, nutty bread.
Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
Yeah, it made me think of it again. As soon as I saw that, I thought, oh man, it's been years since I've made bannock bread. I got to do that again. And that also leads me to something called pemmican. You ever heard of that?
I have, but what is it?
Yeah, it's made from meat, suet, which is a rendered fat, and berries. Kind of in the same vein. It's almost like if you got beef jerky and then put it through a food processor so it just went to dust. Then you used a fat to kind of bond it, and then you put in berries and stuff.
Right.
So you end up with this, again, it looks like a block, and you can carve chunks off it. And it's they call it like a super kind of survival food. It's a very old, very, very old tradition, and you can carry it when it's in that form. You can carry it for weeks and weeks, especially if you're not adding too much wet ingredients, but you still get all that nutritional value from the protein and the berries. And
Oh, that does sound cool.
yeah, another interesting one. So I thought that was something a bit different. Because I know there's a lot of people. I just know that everyone who's into the outdoors is usually a gear freak, and then a lot of people like to take it a step further and really muck around with their caloric intake and create all of these cool granola bars and all that sort of stuff. So I'll put those links in because I know some of those things are really interesting. All right. Have you got your notes there, Craig?
Yeah. Hey, can I throw one in then?
Yeah, go.
All right. The Scottish Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about him.
Fandabi Dozy
Yeah.
is his YouTube channel. Yeah.
Gets out in his 17th century
Scottish
get up
Yeah,
and bushcraft, and I think you did talk about him in the show notes on number 16.
Yeah, it was episode before last.
Because everyone should check that out, because I had you sort of sprung that on me, and I've checked it out. I love it, by the way.
It's good, isn't it? You were laughing at the time. I remember you going, okay, sounds weird.
No. He's top shelf, what he does.
He's great.
That is so cool. Anyway, I'm hoping you might put up a link to a girl from Bavaria, Germany, and her channel is called Wild Woman Bushcraft.
Yeah, I know her.
So, of course, I'd be interested. We're right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of people might know. I think she's
pretty popular.
Pretty popular. She's got 61,000 subscribers. So, I just think a few of our listeners might want to check it out if they haven't already. And I'd like you to put up just the one I watched first, because for me, that one, it's just immersive. It's very cool. She sets up a camera, does some fantastic sort of use of her camera just to demonstrate her campsite. She doesn't talk. She's got the microphone turned on the whole time. It's like watching an art house film.
People probably wish that we didn't. That's some.
Yeah.
We just had the podcast that was just an hour of silence. Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say that some of her videos where she does talk and her English is pretty bad, and then I was going to say, well, hang on, so's mine. My English is just barely passable.
Barely English.
But no, it was definitely.
Yeah, she does some cool stuff. She popped up in my feed because I kind of watch a lot of Survival Lily. Have you seen her?
Well, no, but since
she'll pop up now that you've looked at that.
And that's what's happened. There's quite a few, girl takes dog out into the wilderness for a while. And great, man. It's really cool to see that stuff. And she does a pretty good job of it. Yeah, for sure.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, she knows what she's doing. She tends to show a lot of her shortcomings, which I like.
Yeah, that's true.
I've noticed through her videos, she'll say that didn't work, or that's not the right way of doing it, or in hindsight, I should have done this. A lot of people, especially guys, will do their YouTube channel with everything just works out perfectly. But I like the something we're pretty proud of is showing our faults and sort of learning from that. and I think it's good to see it in a video.
And she carries some cool knives and axes, eh?
Yeah, she got some cool kit as well. Yeah. No, that's good. Speaking of and it is, we're still in that media mashup. Speaking of women in the outdoors, I got something for you.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this. It's your birthday present.
Oh, girls in the outdoors. Oh, it's every...
You're not going to be familiar with... You won't be able to guess what that is because you've never probably had anything that shape before given to you as a present.
I'm going to have to read something. Is that right?
It's a book, yeah.
Oh, man. It's wrapped beautifully. Thanks, Tom.
It's purple with little cartoon balloons on it.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have it at the right time for your birthday.
Oh, yes. This looks good.
Yeah, you'll love it. I'm about 10 pages away from finishing that. I'm going to finish it tomorrow morning when I have my cup of coffee. It's so
you've told me about this. So this is called My Year Without Matches, right? Yep.
Yeah.
So
I put up an Instagram post about a week or two ago when I received my copy. And
awesome.
I was pretty much captivated by, I don't know, 3 pages in, man. I was done. I just can't put it down.
Jeez.
And I have to say it, and it's purely because it's a fact that that journey from a woman's perspective it caught me off guard. It's different to what a guy would write, and that's a fact. And in some respects, it's deeper. In some respects, it's the attention to detail, the subtleties, the emotions. I just think the way that she's written that book is phenomenal. I mean, I'm not talking about it on this podcast because I don't want to spoil it for you, and I've still got one chapter to go. So
cool.
Stay tuned for that. I basically won't review that on the podcast until you have read the complete book.
Wow.
And we can do it together because I don't want to tell you what it's all about.
All right, well, we'll be back here in 6 months. That'll be great.
Basically this time next year.
No, I'll read it quick. I'll get into this. This looks good. I'm excited. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, and I don't really like, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me, but I don't really like giving too much away, giving away scoops about what we've got coming up. But I can say that I am in a lot of contact with the author of that book. She's agreed to come on as a guest, and it's just a matter of us, the stars aligning and all of us being available at the same time.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So that's something to look forward to. Claire Dunn is her name, and again, I'll put links to that in the show notes so you guys can get your hands on a copy if you like. It's cool. I wrote in it. I signed it.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. There you go. Happy birthday.
Thanks, mate. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's a good book. You'll enjoy that.
For sure.
And the other...
I'm just going to go sit over in the corner and start this now.
You start reading it, I'll finish this up, mate. The other cool thing, if we want to continue on the scoops, is that guy, that the Scottish Tom from Fandabby Dozy that Craig mentioned before. We're also in email conversations with him, and we just need to set a date with him.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, you said that. Yeah, that would be so cool.
All we got to do is you and I just need to give him a couple of dates. As soon as he, if he can fit in with one of those, job done. You guys are going to love listening to him. Yeah.
For sure, that's good.
So we got a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Wow.
Between now, we still got a few months of this year left, and we intend to jam pack that with cool guests and anything else we can. All right, story about.
That's right. Your email.
An email, yeah. Let me just check if I'm literally going to check right now to see if I've got another email back just before I start this story, because I replied to him. So if you listen to the last episode, he hasn't written back yet. If you listen to the last episode, I told you a story about the tick. All right.
Yeah.
If you didn't listen to the last episode, it's not acceptable. Go back and listen. But long story short, a guy takes a new girlfriend out hiking, camping, gets a tick in an unfortunate place in his nether regions and has to get her to go searching for it and ripping it out for him on their very first date. Anyway, so he wrote back to me and said, yeah, you did a reasonably good job of telling that story, you know, as far as accuracy goes. And he said he's already listened to it, but was going camping with her again last weekend. And he said, I've downloaded it and I've told her, because there's going to be a couple of hours drive, he said, I've got this really good podcast to listen to. And she has no idea that he wrote to me or anything, that I'm telling his story or whatever. Knows nothing about it. And he said, I can't wait to see her face when we're driving along. And then I just start talking about the story of those two.
Right.
So I wrote back to him anyway. It was literally only, I think, last weekend that he did that. So on Saturday, a couple of days ago. So I wrote back to him and said, you got to tell me how it went. I just can't wait. But he hasn't written back yet. So stay tuned. By the time we get to next episode, I'll have probably heard back from him as to how that went down. When they're driving along, cruising through the country, listening to this cool outdoor adventure podcast, and then one of the hosts just starts talking about her pulling ticks off.
Oh, that could go bad.
Oh, he's cheeky bugger, that guy. Yeah, he loves stitching her up, by the sounds of it. It's hilarious.
I mean, I'm sure you had that clearance to put that to air, but he probably hadn't gained the right clearance.
Yeah, I don't know if he got clearance. Luckily, her name wasn't in there. Oh, wow. And I'm just going to jump into shout-outs now. We had one of our Instagram followers, he's also a podcast listener, I should say. He was preparing to, his name's Justin, he was preparing to do the Bibbulmun track. You're familiar with this, aren't you? Because we're talking to Josh about it. It's a 1,000-kilometre track in Western Australia.
Oh, yep.
So down the bottom left corner, so southwest corner of Australia. Some parts it goes along beaches, it goes through bushlands, it goes through rainforest, it just goes through over 1,000 kilometres. You can imagine the different terrain that it takes on. Excuse me. Anyway, Justin was preparing for, I think, a 2 to 3 day hike. It's basically his first hike, and with a mate. And he wrote to me and said, an Instagram, and said, hey, thanks so much for the one of the episodes. I found it really useful. I'm going out on my first hike. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And then I said, yeah, good on you, mate. Go for it. And then he wrote back and said, my mate's just pulled out, but I'm going to go anyway. And I said, well, I reckon you should. Like, you've got all the gear ready. You got everything ready. You go for it. You know, give it a go. Do your first solo hike. So he ends up going on the solo hike, because this is very similar to the AT or something in the States, where you can just choose to do tiny sections, even just a day hike or half a day hike, or you can choose to do 2-3 days a week or 3 months, you know.
Okay, yep.
So he chooses to do just a small section. And I'm just going to pull up the actual message. And he said to me, he wrote back and said, I want to thank you for something I heard on one of your earlier podcasts about Topo Maps Plus. I downloaded the app and I put in my trail. Well, it may have just saved my life, and a valuable lesson was learnt. I was lucky to find my way out of a bad situation. Going really off trail, I kept pushing, and being a little stubborn, I didn't want to hike all the way back to a marker. I thought I'd just keep following a different track, but I was wrong. Luckily, I still had reception to get the maps, and I found which direction I had to go. And so basically, he got out by installing that app from listening to the. I just thought that was a fantastic story for one, that the app was so useful, but secondly because it helped him. Thirdly, because he got out and didn't have to get airlifted out.
Yeah, you would have felt real good.
If I said go for it,
go on, mate, you can do it.
He didn't know about the app. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Anyway, Justin, I said to him, mate, top effort, mate, for going out there, and he signs off and says, the mental hurdle that I had to overcome was something incredible. I've never overcome so many barriers in my life as much as that day.
Really?
Yeah, I know what it's like to be solo. It's not to be taken lightly, right? We know this.
Yeah, sure.
It's something that takes a different skill set and a different level of confidence.
Yeah.
At the same time, we've said this 1,000 times, the solitude wreaks havoc on your decision-making process. And so, yeah, good on you, mate, for getting through that. Props to you for keeping on going. Something that Justin closes with that is, we've heard this a couple of times from other listeners, in fact, and other people that reach out to us, is he says even suffering through anxiety and depression previously in his life, he didn't really suffer as much as he did that day.
Whoa.
So but my point with that is that so many and it's mostly males that are kind of reaching out, and these aren't, some of them are young, some of them are I don't know what the term is, middle-aged or whatever, mature. And, it just strikes me, and this is a different subject altogether, but it just strikes me that a lot of males are kind of suffering from depression. I don't think that it's kind of taken seriously enough because of that macho kind of, and I'm not talking about Justin's situation there. I'm generalizing, and it just strikes me as something that we need to kind of, you need to be able to reach out to mates. You need to be able to hike with mates, hang out with mates, do something with mates. And personally, I like getting in the outdoors because it takes all the other distractions away, and I think there's a certain amount of learning and healing to be done in nature. And I think that's kind of, he went through some of that.
Yeah,
in,
and even
in that period, yeah.
Especially being able to just talk about anxiety and depression like that, like he is to you, that's very
just being. I think that's important. I think what's wrong with saying that? Hey, I have suffered from this, or I am suffering from this, or I don't know what I'm feeling at the moment, but it doesn't feel right. Can we have a chat about it? Like, guys, if you're not talking, I think that's the first mistake. You gotta be able to just open up about this thing. I've got a couple of mates like yourself included that where we'll sit around and chat, and I don't know, nothing's off topic. I'll tell you if I'm feeling happy, sad, mad, whatever's getting me down. Work, you often tell me about in the past work struggles and stuff. You just got to be able to do it.
Have a chat.
Absolutely, and if you can get out and do some exercise and sweat it out, all the better.
Anyway, as your story was unfolding there, I thought, Tom's, encouraged this guy. He's got himself a little bit lost. It sounds like he got pretty tragically lost. So
he had to bush bash.
Wow.
Through and walk through a river, and
so that is an interesting story.
Yeah. I'm so glad he had the topo maps.
Yeah.
He's the last line is my favourite. He says, "But I don't feel like I'm finished with nature yet.
That's it, eh?
To which I replied, mate, absolutely not. Do not take that. I told him, I said, go listen to episode 1 of our podcast where we kind of delve into our first hike and how horribly wrong that went on a few levels. And you're going to get it wrong and it's going to be uncomfortable, and you need to take stock, work out what went wrong and why, and just make little improvements. Don't just give it up. That's for sure. That dovetails pretty nicely into leading you guys back into what you're here for. Probably not to listen to us tell stories, but back to our guest. We have obviously done part 1, and Craig, would you agree that part 2 is going to dig a little deeper with Andy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I really do like the second half of this conversation. There's
it's
no
a
doubt.
cracker. It just gets better and better, like a fine wine.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think, like we were just saying, Andy got himself in a bit of trouble a few times as well, and we all do. It's part of earning your stripes, I think.
It is. I think, yeah, exactly right. And if you want to put that back into context with Justin,
that's what I mean.
Mate, Justin, listen to this and listen to a guy who's extremely confident and getting himself into trouble because he makes careless mistakes. We all do, and he does as well.
All right, we ready to do it?
Yep.
Okay, guys. Well, I hope you enjoy it as much as we did making it. Great conversation with Andy. Here it comes.
Would you say that if you had to choose one of these two phrases to kind of sum up yourself, would you say that you're more repelled by the world we live in, so the city life, or are you more drawn to the wilderness, or is it somewhere in between?
These two-edged questions, I like them. Really makes me think about it, But yeah, you can't live without town. I can't live without a house. I can't live without having regular access to food and water and other people, and a community, and all of this, and so. You are grateful for having a home and all those things that are provided by being able to live in a town. And when you go out there, it's such a juxtaposition, and it's such a different existence out there. And you couldn't do it if you didn't take your pocket of civilization with you. If you didn't have a tent, if you didn't have a stove, the old timers did it the hard way, but they still had basic, they had boots, they had, a tarp, or they had they had food with them. The places I go, there's not enough food to eat. It's not the kind of land that you can, survive on, especially in winter.
Yep.
Might find a few berries to eat or a couple of mushrooms, but it wouldn't be enough to sustain you for a period of time, unless you hunted. But then, you're within national parks, so you probably shouldn't be hunting out there. So yeah, it just kind of leaves you the choice of, okay, I'm going to take a pack's worth of stuff, and without that, you can't be out there. So it's hard to draw the line of, what do you seek more? But there's certain things you can only find out there, and there's certain things you can only find in the city, and you need to acknowledge that you need both to survive.
I think that's a really good question, Tom. I like how you answered it too, Andy. It's there's the sensitivity when you come back from, your senses being alert in the wild, and then you come back and you just feel the strangeness of our society. But you need both. You need that sort of your friends and your family and your connections with other people, and then you need to experience the wild as well. Hey, can I ask you, mate? How did you go about planning for you say you plan for 2 years, sometimes 3 years for some of these trips. Is that because you had to put food at drop-off points and you had to work out how much you needed? And is it all about planning your gear correctly? Or?
Oh, look, you started to talk about logistics. I love this shit.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know any hikers that don't, mate. This is where they rubbing their hands together and go, oh, yeah, good.
I knew we'd arrive to this. Well, yeah. Look, I mean, logistically, it's difficult because on the trips that I like to do, like what I plan my trips around is spending as much time in remote areas as possible, remote and scenic. So I don't want to take a detour to have to go into a town or to a road even if I don't need to. So the whole idea of planning a longer trip is to pick a route that I'm going to provision before starting the trip in animal and waterproof tubs, and so I simply visit those my caches. And for the Tassie Traverse, the 84-day trip that I did last year, I had 9 of those food drops, and each of them contained about a week's worth of food. And other things that you need on the trip. So yeah, like the kind of gear you take, on a 3-month trip, you're going to need extra AAA batteries for your head torch. You're going to need a bog roll every now and then, So it's one of those things, like you got to think ahead.
So just quickly about those food drops you got.
I think quickly we should explain to our international listeners what a bog roll is.
Bog roll is.
Well, it's what you wipe your ass with when you take a shit.
There you go. You summed that up. All right, next.
You didn't know. Yeah, so did you have to hide them? I know you said animal and waterproof. Do you have to just sort of hide them somewhere? Do you have to GPS mark them, or do you go to a place that you know well? Or
look, the main thing about food drops is you got to be able to find them yourself.
Yeah.
When you go back, and that's why I place my food drops and not anyone else.
Okay.
So yeah, one of the food drops I had to paddle in to the base of Eldon Peak, and that's the food drop I didn't need in the end, which is a very long story. Probably not going to tell that one, but yeah, it was a 2-day mission to get it in, and it was a 2-day mission to get it out at the end of the trip after I didn't use it.
Jeez.
Wow.
And so then that food drop was about 15 k's from the closest road, totally off track. So then, you just find a place that you can find your way back to. So, from, it was near a confluence of 2 rivers, and I knew roughly, about 300 meters up from there through along this path next to the river. There's no path. It's just, a line that you pick through the scrub.
Yeah.
And then, I remembered I put it up in this tree in case the river floods. I didn't want it to get washed away.
Yeah.
And so it's literally just going back to a tree that you've been there once, and you just got to find your way back.
But how long before your trip had you put them there? Like weeks or months?
Well, yeah, because I was working at the time, so I had short windows of opportunity. So it took me about a month to place the food drops all.
Okay.
And I just placed them just before the trip, so that I finished placing them a week before I started my trip.
Right. And did you do it well? Did you end up like getting through 9 drops? Did you end up running out of food at any point along the way, or did you do it okay?
Well, I did run out of food at one point because one section took a bit longer than I thought it would. Yeah. That's kind of a long story, that one. But mostly, like the food drops are intact. So, it's that thing of you get a bucket, you seal it up. That process works well. But then, what you put in them is important. So I made these protein bars that I was like, these are going to be the best thing ever. And they went moldy. So I couldn't eat them.
Oh, man.
That's no good.
And that was 10% of my total rations for the whole trip.
That's massive.
No good.
That is
so
massive.
Then I still had my phone with me for one of the, the first section, and then I called my mate Pat, and I was like, Pat, can you buy me 40 Cliff Bars and bring it to me? Because so the thing is, it wasn't a true solo trip because I had friends meet me at certain points as well.
Yep.
Certain landmarks or points where I needed kayaks. So we paddled across 3 of the waterways on my traverse. So I'd have certain people meet me on certain dates.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the planning of this trip, I have to know pretty much exactly how many days each section is going to take.
It's pretty difficult to meet somebody if you're 3 or 4 days out.
Well, that's right. So, and not only that, but you need to know how much food to take for each section.
Yep.
So then what took so long to plan? Because I was going into untracked areas, looking on the map is not enough information to get a sense for how long it's going to take.
Yep.
So then you literally have to talk to someone who's been there, who's done, each of those sections, or at least has a rough idea for what the country's like out there and roughly how much time it can take for each section. So I was lucky enough to find an older local here, Peter Marmion, who helped me out with, estimating the times for each off-track section through to Franklands and through to Spires and the Eldons and that kind of thing. And the Eldons was one place I didn't go into in the end. So yeah, some places remain, for my next trip. Yeah.
Was this the trip that the first food cache you took about half an hour to find it? Was that this trip?
Oh, that was in the Australian Alps, I think.
Actually, it might have been,
because that was underneath snow. I remember. So I was like, oh, I swear it was one of these trees here.
Geez, that would have, because you said it was around about 30 minutes. You couldn't find it. I think after about 10 minutes, I would have been starting to stress pretty heavily.
Well, I was in the trees and it was dark, and I just remember thinking, it's 2 days walk to the closest town from here, and I have no food left.
Was there something else about that? Specifically getting into that barrel, though, was there some other little surprise in there that you were looking forward to?
Well, look, you gotta put a couple of treats in there, I think. Yeah, so I think I had a couple of beers in that one.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Yeah, very important cache, that one.
Yeah, well, they all had a couple of those in there. I remember by the end of that trip, at the end of the Australian Alps trip, I'd get to food drop, and I'd literally rip the lid of the bucket up, and I'd get the block of chocolate and just eat it in the one spot. Hey, like that block of chocolate was just gone within like the first 10 minutes, and then I'd be sitting there going, oh, now I've got no chocolate for a whole week.
I don't know. I kind of do a similar thing sometimes, especially with chocolate. And I don't know. I think that's okay. I think you can still savor that kind of memory for a week until you get the next one.
Yeah, well, that's right. So, yeah, the food drops, it adds an extra element to the trip, because, longer trips, you just got to account for the wear and tear of your gear as well. Like, if you're on the PCT, probably not so much.
Did you?
Like Southwest, yeah.
Yeah, well, did you have to test a lot of gear leading up to some of these trips? Have you, have you changed your mind a lot, or are you pretty easy going with your gear, just make the most of it, or do you really test it and work out what sort of soles you need to have on your boots and stuff like that, or how?
Well, look, I mean, about a trip like that, like your most important bits of gear, they've got to be your boots. They just got to be a good pair of boots. I ended up using a pair of Salmon's Quests, actually 2 pairs of them. I had one stashed in one of the food drops at halfway point, and I was glad for that because, the first one was full of holes by the time I got there, and it just turned real cold around then.
Oh, wow.
Because I left in April and arrived just after winter solstice last year. So it was kind of a late autumn, early winter trip. So then, you just got to account for things like, your raincoat, like, in Tassie, because the scrubs, just so prickly, it just puts holes in everything. So your pack's got to be pretty tough if you're going to do, like a longer trip in Tassie. So, I always use the One Planet packs for the longer trips.
Mm-hmm.
I just found them, so reliable, hey. Company that's based in Melbourne, and they manufacture in Melbourne still. So, like their packs are bomb-proof. So that's probably the most important thing. Having said that, I did manage to break it on that trip because I overloaded it. Like it was just had way too much shit in it. Yeah. So at the halfway point, I remember the stitching, did, break. And then I had to, luckily I was at Lake Sinclair, so I could use the parks office, to use my housemate. To call my housemate and be like, hey, can you send my pack up? That's in the basement. Yeah. Can you send it up to someone? And then my housemate came up the next day, and brought me my backup pack and continued with that one. So little things breaks, you need a little fixing kit.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal if your gear lets you down, isn't it? I mean, you dependent on it.
If you're out in the bush on your own and your pack breaks, well, it's bad news, But the most important thing is not to let go of your pack either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might have done that once on that trip. Is that correct?
Come on, tell us that story.
Oh, well, that's when. So I was back at Federation Peak 2 years after we did Winter on the Blade. So my traverse of Tassie last year went right past it. I did the Eastern Arthurs traverse. And so when I got to Federation Peak, I remember I got to Bechervaise Plateau, and they were the platforms where we camped for 2 weeks.
Yep.
2 years previously, and it was surreal sitting there. And I remember this cloud, it was just super misty, drizzly, and I was sitting there eating my lunch. And I was just really cold, and I was like, fuck, I really want to spend the night here, but I've got to keep moving. And I had 3 hours of daylight left, and I had to get around Federation Peak to the campsite on the other side of the mountain at Hanging Lake. And so anyway, I struck off after lunch, and I thought, 3 hours, it should take me about 2.5 hours, so, it should be all right. And anyways, so you go up, and then you got to descend down this kind of rock slab. And it's very steep terrain, and I've done that section of the track a number of times now, maybe 4 or 5 times. And so I thought, oh yeah, I've totally got this in the bag, but what I didn't count on is that it was so wet and the snow melt last year when I was there. This slab became a waterfall. And so, what's usually a delicate descent became quite treacherous. And I remember, I've got a 30-kilo pack on, again, way too much stuff to carry. That's like the recurring theme of most of my trips.
It seems to be.
And one I still haven't managed to fix for some reason. But yeah, so you kind of descending, and I got to a point where I was like, I cannot do the next move with my pack on. And I couldn't really go back. I didn't want to go back. And, so I thought, well, I've got a 4-meter rope. I'm going to lower my pack to that ledge below me, and then down climb on my own, without the pack. And I've got everything in the pack, my all my food, my stove, my EPIRB, everything, all my dry clothes. The only thing I've got on me is my camera, And so anyways, so I lower the pack, and the rope's not quite long enough, and I've kind of got one hand on the rope and one hand on the cliff, just hanging on, and kind of balanced on this precarious edge, and the ropes, and I can't down climb or anything, so I'm pretty much stuck, and I'm like, well, I'm going to have to let go of the rope here and hope the pack tumbles onto the ledge. And anyway, so I let go of the rope, and the pack tumbles onto the ledge, and then keeps going, and I look down this gully, and the track, that goes around Federation Peak, descends for about another 50 meters, and then turns right and goes up again. But the gully that I'm standing in continues 600 meters down to Lake Jeeves. Oh. And there's a series of vertical drops along that. The closest one to me is about 100 meters further down, and this gully is kind of channeled into a deep kind of V groove. So there's no way of getting around it and down climbing or anything like that. And I'm looking at this pack, and it's kind of gaining momentum, it's like tumbling, and then my water bottle flies out, and I watch it as it tumbles closer and closer to this ledge of no return. And I think, oh shit, this could be quite bad, yeah, because I was really cold by then, and there's no food and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what's going to happen next. And then, anyways, this pack literally stopped on the ledge. Yeah, one more tumble and it wouldn't have gone over.
That is sickening, mate. That is sickening.
As it was, yeah, it stopped. And I was like, well, I reckon I would have survived the night, because the bit I didn't tell you is I did have my tent with me, yeah, because there was a separate dry bag that was tied to the outside of my bag.
Yep.
And so I had thrown that down onto the ledge of the pack. And so I had my tent, so I could have got out of the wind at least. I would have survived the night, but geez, it wouldn't have been a good time.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, I think I would have almost passed out watching that roll down there.
I'm sure it happened in slow motion, right?
So then, I'm assuming,
because you're 2 days. You're 2 days from the 2.5 days from the closest chance of seeing a person from there. Even if you just hoof it from out of there,
wow.
Like it will take you 2 days to get to a road where the cars might be driving past, and without any of that gear at that time of year. But then, eventually, I picked up the pack, went to the campsite that night, and the next morning, just beautiful sunrise, and I was actually sitting on the tent platform in my undies, soaking up the sun, doing yoga, and I was like, this is great, life is great, I feel like it's summer again.
Jeez. Mate, that sums you up, doesn't it? in your undies doing yoga at sunrise. That's what I think of when I think of you.
Well, it's the best thing ever. If it's warm enough, then it's great.
How long did it take you to? Hey, sorry, I'm just gonna reverse for a second, and I don't want to sound morbid, but I think it's a good point for listeners. Craig and I often joke about which one of us has the EPIRB. Sometimes we used to have one each, but mine's since expired, so I just rely on Craig having one. But we always make this joke of if I fall off the cliff, just make sure that you don't let Craig fall off the cliff because he's the one with the EPIRB. Now it's funny and everything, but in your circumstances, that pack had the EPIRB in it, and you almost lost it. And again, not to be morbid, but just revisiting that story of that lady who
That's
fell.
exactly what happened.
Exactly what happened. She fell with her pack 50 meters. The other hiker that was with her then realized that the EPIRB was in the other hiker's pack. So I didn't want to get all down after your yoga talk, but I think it's just a good lesson in saying, we all need to be conscious of where the EPIRB is, because nobody plans when they're going to fall off a cliff, and nobody plans when they're going to throw their pack off a cliff. So,
that's right. I mean, so in that circumstance, what the other lady had to do, so it was only two of them, and she had her phone on her, and so she had to get reception, so had to climb back up to the summit. I think this is. I don't know if she had to go all the way to the summit, but I think you have to go up from where the lady fell to get reception. And, trying to climb in that mindset, we've just seen your friend fall to their death, having to, and that's what you have to do in that circumstance, because you're like, well, she, potentially she could still be alive, so I need to get assistance as soon as I can.
That's true too.
So then, in that circumstance, you just think, well, if there is a backup, how do I get to it? But in my case, it would have been, okay, I'm going to have to start moving and keep moving, because the chances of me retrieving the pack from where it fell was, I don't know, it was pretty minimal. So then for me, if I did lose my pack in that circumstance, I would have had to assess whether it was worth trying to retrieve it, or whether I would have just had to say, okay, I accept defeat and I go out right now.
Yeah, so you had a tent, so you could have said, well, at the very least, I've got shelter from the elements. I can just turn around right now and try and do this 2 days as quick as possible.
Yeah, you'd survive for sure, because there's plenty of water out there. You're not gonna die of thirst.
Yep.
And then your body can survive without food for at least a week. As long as you don't do anything too silly like twist your ankle or something like that.
Yeah.
Then you might get stuck. But yeah, when you're in that position, you just kind of assess it for what it is and just deal with it as best as you can. When you're out there, and it happens, you just kind of go, well, okay, this has happened, but then what can my response be to that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the first decision that the solo traveler is going to make is whether you're going to take an EPIRB or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having an EPIRB with you, it does funny things to your decision making, because it doesn't make you feel invincible, but it makes risk more acceptable.
I know exactly what you mean.
So when you don't have an EPIRB, you're not going to do certain things that if you have an EPIRB, you might do.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I've noticed that with myself. When I first used to go, my first solo trip, I didn't have an EPIRB, and a few trips after that. And then it was when I took my father on a 3-day canoe trip, and that was the point where I thought, well, it's okay for me to rely on my skills and abilities, and I think I can get back to civilization. I think I'll be okay if I lose my pack. But I don't think it's acceptable to drag my father out there and expect him to do the same. So that's when I forked out for an EPIRB. And up until recently, when it expired, I was always carrying it.
Well, that's right, because I think the argument is that if you don't take an EPIRB and something happens, people are still going to come looking for you, to the best of their knowledge. That's what people do. Is if someone goes missing, they go looking for them. So then if someone's going to come looking for you, you might as well make life easy for the rescuers, if something happens.
Yep.
But then, I kind of made the analogy of climbing with or without ropes. on a cliff base. You know, people who climb with ropes, you're happy to attempt something that you think you might potentially fall on, because the rope's there to catch you. But if you are free soloing, you're climbing on your own without being tied together to a partner who can catch you full, and if you fall, you certainly die. You're not going to try something that you're not 100% sure about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so you approach the problem differently, with or without an EPIRB, I think. And I can tell you this with great confidence because I used my EPIRB on the Tassie Traverse last year, and that was the first time I've ever set one off for myself.
Yeah.
Funnily, not the first time helicopters have come looking for me, but it's the first time I've actually set one off.
Really?
What was, because you're a pretty, not pretty, you're very, very accomplished and confident, knowledgeable and skillful outdoorsman, hiker, whatever you want to call it. So at what point does someone like yourself, and I mean your resilience is far beyond the average person, and I would say far beyond us, at what point does Andy decide that he's going to hit that buzzer?
Well, you know, and it's one of those things, like, you don't know that until you're in that position. And, you know, you think, I'm going to take this EPIRB and there's no way I'm going to use it unless I'm literally about to die, like a literally life or death. And yeah, when I got stuck, I'll be very honest, I got stuck in the King William Range by a storm. And it was, you know, it's funny because I wasn't going to take an EPIRB on the trip.
Wow.
And my friend, you know, a good friend of mine convinced me to take one. Well, you know, we had the conversation and I realized that, you know, and there was that argument that I thought, well, these guys knew my route. Even if I don't want people to come looking for me on that account, you know, of putting their own lives in danger or whatever.
Yeah.
I've got to take an EPIRB because then if something does happen, then I just got to make it easy for my rescues.
I see. That's
you know?
an interesting viewpoint. I've never heard anybody say that, but the way you're framing that is that out of respect to your friends and family who you know will follow in your footsteps to try and find you, you would making life easier for them. And that's a really interesting way of putting it. I've never heard that before.
Well, that was the reason I took one, because I didn't take it for myself. I didn't want to take one for myself because I wanted to know what it's like to be out there on my own.
Okay.
Of, you know, knowing that if something does go wrong, there's no one going to come looking for me, and that was kind of one of the aims of the trip.
Yeah.
But then, I'll tell you what, I was very glad to have an EPIRB in the end. So what happened was, so that section of the walk was quite going to be, you know, the challenging bit. I had to get from Lake Gordon to the Lyle Highway, so that's about, you know, 12 days worth of wilderness walking through one of the most remote parts of Tassie, and you know, there's certainly no way I was going to encounter anyone on that section, and it was hard work. You know, I was working really hard. And the rations that I'd kind of provisioned weren't enough per day, but you know, I was kind of rationing the food per day as I had to, and I'd be ravenous by 2:00 in the afternoon after I'd eaten, you know, my breakfast, my lunch, all my snacks, and I still had, you know, hours and hours to go. And so eventually I got to the King William Range, and it was a real shit fight to get up there because I had to cross this valley, right? That 10 kilometers took me 3 days, and
wow.
For 3 days, I was in this forest going up this mountain, and I was following the compass bearings, you know, and counting steps. And for 3 days, I didn't see out of the trees, you know, so I was literally just following my compass through this forest for 3 days. And I thought, well, if I can get up to King William 3 from there, it's all open. You know, you're on a ridge line, you can see where you're going. It's 3 days to the road from there. And when I topped out on King William 3, I had 3 days of food left, and I thought, great, I'm on schedule. Like, I've made it. Like, I've gone through the most difficult part of my trip. Navigationally, I was worried about that section, you know, from Innes High Rocky to King William 3. So for any Tassie bushwalker, like, that means something. You know, it's a difficult stretch of country. And I was proud, you know, I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, I'm on King William 3. I can't believe this. And then as soon as I got out of the trees, the wind was so brutal, you know, and it was been raining for 2 days straight by that point.
Yep.
So I thought, you know what, I've got 3 days of food. I'm just going to camp here and wait for this storm to blow over, you know. And I waited for the next 6 days, and the storm didn't blow over.
Wow.
And, that's when you're sitting in a tent and, you find the best campsite you can and the tent's shaking like the whole time. Visibility is like 50 meters. It's just above freezing point. So everything's saturated. You're sitting in a cloud. You're sitting in the rain. Like there's, plenty of water. You're not endangered in any way, but you can't really cover ground in those conditions.
Yep.
Because basically I decided not to take a GPS, not to take a phone for that section. I only had my compass. That's my only instrument for navigation in those conditions. And the compass was affected by the dolerite, by the iron content, which is, so basically I couldn't rely on my compass. It was showing me all kinds of things that, the needle was swinging, take 10 steps, you'd stop to check and you're walking the wrong way. And then you'd take a bearing again and you take another 10 steps and it would be telling you something different. And so you're on a broad, open ridge line. There's no landmarks. So it becomes very difficult to navigate. And on top of that, you've got the wind. And, my fingers would get so cold that I'd be worried about not being able to put up a tent on my own, And so I decided, I'm going to sit and wait for the weather to clear up. And there was one possible escape route that I didn't really want to take, which would have gone out to Butler's Gorge to the northeast. But it would have meant crossing the Gordon River at its headwaters. And, it's been raining for days at that point. And at that point, I thought, well, if I didn't have an EPIRB, I'd have to attempt that. I'd have to try that river crossing and get to Butler's Gorge because there's a chance the weather's not going to clear up.
Yep.
I acknowledged this, and I thought that would be my only course of action if I didn't have an EPIRB because you couldn't stay put with the hope,
Yeah. What sort of a river crossing are we talking about there?
Well, I didn't see it because I didn't go down there. But looking at the map, you'd be looking at a stream. After that much rain, at least waist deep. Yep. But flowing fast and lots of logs down because at that point the Gordon River's still quite narrow. It's more like a gully, and a stream than a river.
Right.
And so what you're probably talking about is lots of strainers, lots of trees down across that you can get sucked under.
Yep.
Lots of fast flowing cold water. Not in something that can sweep you off your feet or something that you have to swim.
Yeah.
Just lots of objective risk basically. So I thought
absolutely.
So that's when I made the call. I said, well, because I have an EPIRB, I'm going to stay put and I'm going to wait and hope that the weather clears up. And I tried to cover ground a couple of the days, absolutely no avail, covered like 2 Ks in 6 hours, got really cold. And I was just like, this is not worth it. I'm just going to sit and wait. And the weather didn't change and I ran out of food. I rationed, 3 remaining days last me 6 days. On that 6th day, I've been on that section for 15 days.
Wow.
So it stretched 12 days of food for 15 days. And I was broken. My hands were cold. I felt like a tiny little drop of warmth in a vast cold ocean, sitting on that ridge line up there. And so that's when I decided that morning, I was like, you know what, it's still 3 days to the road from here. I'm wet, I'm cold, I'm just not up for this anymore. I don't think I can get out, safely on my own.
Yep.
And so that's when I called for help. And I thought, well, is this reasonable? Having looked at some of the rescues that have happened in Tassie the last few years, I really think, people, it's funny coming from me, but there's been some helicopter rescues that just shouldn't have happened,
Yeah.
And I thought, is it reasonable? And I've definitely have a sense of guilt about it, in the sense that I don't know if I think I would have gone out on my own if I didn't call for help. But I had enough doubt that I thought, you know what, because my mum said to me before the trip, she's like, just make sure that you just don't do it, at all costs. And I said, all right, Mum, I promise. So that's what I had in the back of my mind. I was like, you know what, I'd rather just get out and do another trip than, make this one the last one. So then, I pushed the button. And then 3 hours later, I heard a helicopter, but sitting in the cloud, they couldn't land. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to pack up camp and get out of the cloud. So then did that and walked down far enough on the ridge just to be out of the cloud. And sure enough, they found me because once you've got your transmitter, it's transmitting so they can follow you even if you're moving. So then they flew straight at me. And I saw this helicopter just materialize out of the mist. And at this point, I've been out there on my own for 15 days and it was day 50 of my trip.
Wow.
So, but it's been 15 days since I've seen anyone. And I'm just looking at this helicopter going, fuck, this is a miracle. And so then anyway, then the copper wraps out of the helicopter with the pack, and he comes up to me and he's like, all right, this is what we'll do. The heli will come in, it will hover, and then you'll get on, we'll pass the packs up, and then I'll get on, and then we'll take off. I was like, all right, sweet. So we did that. So the helicopter came, and it couldn't land, so it just hovered about a meter above the ground, and it kind of half pulled, I kind of half climbed up, they half pulled me up, and then the packs, and then the police officer, and then we took off with the door open still, and within 30 seconds, we were out of the clouds, and everywhere else was blue sky except the top of the King William Range.
Wow.
Oh.
And they were like, so what happened? And I was like, fuck, like, you're not going to believe this. Yeah. And like they were all cool with it. I think my story has raised a few eyebrows in the bushwalking community.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm happy with my decision, and I totally, like, I was so grateful for that service, that they provided.
Yep.
And I had a chat to the head sergeant, Damien Biddy. His mates called him, and he was okay with it. Like, he didn't give me a hard time.
No, that's good.
He just asked me to tell them what happened, and I told them, and and at the end of the day, I was like, look, I underestimated the weather. I didn't realize that a storm at that time of year, it lasted for 9 days. I was in the clouds.
Yeah.
Didn't see the sun for 9 days. This is in late May last year.
Yeah.
And
it's not knowing as well. Like, you don't know. It could break in 2 hours. It could break in another 2 weeks. You don't know.
I had a sense that the weather was lifting. So the next 3 days were clear because the wind had stopped by that point. But it stopped a bit too late. I was a broken man by the time it stopped. And the funny thing was, we've got flown out, and this was about halfway point of my trip. I got put down at Derwent Bridge, and that's Lake St Clair National Park, and that was where my next food drop was. And so I said to the guys, I was like, well, thanks very much. Is there any chance you could leave me here? And I'm going to continue my trip. So they said, yeah, no worries. Blah, blah, blah. And I told them, I was like, look, after that, I'm not going to go across the Eldon Range, because that was my next mountain range to traverse. And that would have been probably the most difficult section of the trip overall.
Even more difficult.
More technical than the King William Range.
Wow.
And in the end, the weather I got the next 2 weeks, it would have been fine, I think. But at that time, I just thought, fuck, I can't get rescued twice on the same trip.
And you'd be a bit shaken as well. But without sounding condescending, fully good for you for hitting the button, mate. You're here now telling us this story, maybe because you hit that button. I mean, it must have been
we may
tough.
never know.
We'll never know. And that's fine by me, mate, because you're here and that's good, and your mum's happy and that's good. So I don't think it really matters, but I've heard of people hitting buttons for sprained ankles and stuff, mate, so it wouldn't be too hard on yourself. And I don't like to hear that earlier comment that it's raised a few eyebrows in the bushwalking community. That doesn't please me to think that people with similar passions to us are questioning anything at all, because knowing what you've accomplished previously, I think that's a bit slack for anyone to kind of question that. And bottom line is, mate, everyone has different points at which they would push the button, and as you said earlier, you don't know until you do it.
I think it's hard to judge, until you're in that same position, which, you can never...
No, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to judge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, good on you, mate. I'm glad you're here to tell us about
100%. Thanks for sharing that story, mate. I really appreciate hearing that. That would have been a crazy time up on that ridge for sure. And,
6 days, just sitting around. I remember I was reading The Rock Warrior's Way on my Kindle, which is a book that combines Zen Buddhism with rock climbing, like instructive in an instructive way.
Well, you obviously had some mental injuries then anyway, so that was, I'm with Tom. I'm glad that you pushed the button, so you're alive to tell the story, mate. That's what it's all about, I reckon.
Well, you got to return. That's an essential part of the trip. Not always a favourite part, but returning from a trip is an essential requirement for me, because I like going on trips, so I want to keep doing them.
Yeah, I think it's important too to share to share your trips, and you do that quite well through your photography and through your writing, which is spectacular, very captivating, and that's what's spurring other people on. You know, I've read the comments at the bottom of your blog entries, and people are just inspired, mate, and that's, you know, I think that's part of our job. I say our job collectively, us people who spend a lot of time in the wilderness. I think it's part of our job to expose other people to it, introduce them to it, and inspire them to want to get out there on their own.
Well, that's right. Like, yeah, for me, it's about inspiring people and inspiring a respect for these places in people, of, you know, treating them right, and not only following minimal impact codes when you're out there, but also thinking about your lifestyle choices when you come back and how they might impact on these areas that you like to visit. You know, in Tasmania, a changing fire regime is endangering a lot of these ecosystems that have survived because it is wetter and colder down here than other places. And so, you know, our collective lifestyle is driving that change. And so then you're going to ask yourself the honest question when you return is, what am I doing personally that is leading to an impact on these areas? Not just the time that I spend out there, but then also my day-to-day decisions that I make every day.
Yep.
But yeah, like, you know, sharing the trip, it's such an essential part to me, you know, of communicating, because people ask me, you know, how do you not go crazy out there? Or, you know, how do you keep, you know, and so it's just this total lack of familiarity with the kind of terrain, I suppose, you know.
Well, I think they don't realise you were already crazy before you went out there either, in their defence.
Well, that's right, yeah. So, you know, maybe I get a little bit more sane every time I go out there. I think that's how I look at it. But, yeah, so I do have an exhibition coming up in Hobart with my photographs from this trip that I did last year.
Fantastic.
And so that's, you know, that's something that is important to me, is to get people in the same space, like, you know, the Cradle Mountain Film Festival. It, you know, it acts as a hub where people can come together, share stories, and meet face to face, and look at, you know, like actually physically look at some prints, you know, some pictures, rather than just scrolling past on Instagram and Facebook. And, you know, just having a quick glimpse. You have that experience of going to an event, meeting other people, and also hearing the story, and then seeing, you know, the artworks that are being produced as a result of that trip.
That's a really good point, mate. And I would say that I've been to other film festivals before, but I've never been to an adventure film festival, and I've never been to one so quaint and small and specific. And I have to say that I 100% agree that it's the people behind the photos and the adventures that have left a lasting impression on me. I mean, look, we're talking to you now. It's a direct result of us going to that film festival, catching the end of your talk, and then you walking into that yurt. When you walked into that yurt, we were having a conversation with, was it Paul Pritchard?
Yep.
Top bloke, you know, and we're communicating with him, just trying to line something up with him as well. And you know, later on we were talking to Stephen Forsyth. He has an interesting Fordyth, I think is his surname. He was the cave diver.
Oh,
and,
righto.
Yeah, so I've kept in touch with him. Absolutely salt of the earth guy. Top bloke, kept in touch with him. We really want to talk to him as well. And so we watched his talk because it was straight after the one I did, or straight before, I think. And then we, you know, I've kept in touch with him. And since that film festival, one of the things he was talking about was maybe one day they'd be able to connect up to existing mapped tunnels. And since that film festival, he actually did it. And
they've done it.
Yeah, they did it. Yeah. They connected the little gap that was missing in the middle. Like, it got on the news and everything. I mean, he was part of that team, and I sent him a message and said, "Well done, mate. Congrats." And he's really humble. He's saying, "Oh no, it was a team effort. I just happened to be there." But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, we were really impressed with that film. That was such a good Aussie film.
It was a very, very good film. That did you catch that one at all, Andy?
Oh, I missed that one, but I've heard about this project from various cavers, and if it's the one I've heard about, it's really impressive what they've done.
Not
which,
only
you know,
what
the
they
depths-
did, mate, but the because like
footage.
the way they say it, the way Steven says it, and I think it was Fraser was the guy who filmed it and edited
Yep.
it, but the way they talk about it is caving in Tasmania is just a blip on the radar, a tiny blip on the radar of world caving. So the depths aren't as deep, the lengths aren't as long. But that doesn't matter because it is what it is, and I think that it's something pretty spectacular for Tasmania and for Australia. And so I don't think that should take away from what they've accomplished down there. It's pretty full on.
Oh, like what those guys did, like in terms of places that most people never want to go, like that's top of the list.
People's worst nightmares are what these guys do, and I'm not even exaggerating that. Like, it is horrific. You've really got to find a way to find that film and watch it.
Yeah.
Because the storytelling, the way that Fraser and the team captured it, put it together, it was quite literally, I'd say, without exaggerating, I think it was the best film I saw on the entire weekend, and I'm comparing that to the Mountain Film Festival that we went to on the following night and watched all of the stuff from around the world in the US. So big call, I know, but the story and the journey was, I mean, would you agree with what I'm saying, Craig?
Yeah, the production value was first class.
It was up there, mate.
And I don't think that
spot
was the feature length of what they are going to put out. I think that was a edit.
I think it's a film festival
edit
length, yeah.
And it was really good. It was really worth a watch. The whole thing was spectacular.
Yeah, top stuff, mate. But yeah, sorry, getting back to your original point that meeting the people behind these adventures was one of the highlights for me.
And maybe just to pause there, I think if any of our listeners look you up, Andy, the first thing they're going to notice is some of your fantastic photos, mate. I want to give you a big plug on how good it is to see them. They are spectacular, mate. And you know, that's one of your big drivers, isn't it, to get out there and take photos?
Well, that's right, you know, because I think about how do I translate that experience, you know, how do I tell people about what I'll go through on my trips, you know, so that I can share that, you know, because for me, my trips, you know, they're my essence, you know, they're what I live for.
Do you carry a lot of gear, camera gear?
Well, yeah, so I've recently trimmed down my kit because my camera broke. So now I use a smaller camera that's a lot older than the previous one. So I've been shooting on digital, the last 5 years, and on one of my last trips, finally corked it. And this camera, it looks like it's been through the washing machine, and it literally has a number of times. And it's knocked up and knocked about. And anyway, so I just thought, well, rest in peace, old Olympus. You have done your duty. And basically, I got an old camera, an old Pentax MX that was made in Japan in the 70s.
Wow.
So we're talking, film camera, like no electronics, no batteries. You just wind it up and you push the button, and there's a spring and the shutter opens.
Wow.
And then at the end you roll up the film. And I fucking love it. It's like the best camera. It's so good because it doesn't need any batteries and it's lightweight and it's bomb-proof. This thing's 40 years old. It's like nearly, it's older than me. And it takes a really nice photo, on the film. But yeah, it's tricky, these days because you can't it's hard to find someone to get it printed directly from the film.
100%.
So it's got to be digitalized first. So then at the moment, my big dilemma is figuring out where I'm going to find a place that can print from a negative film directly onto, a photographic print.
Yes.
Without digitalizing it and pixelating it, because that's kind of the whole point, is you get rid of that digital process.
Yeah. Look, I think you'd have more luck if you were, say, in Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to struggle down there.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in Tassie does it. But yeah, so that's the kind of just it's the same idea of trimming down your kit. When you're a hiker or you're an outdoors person, is you figure out, the most efficient way of doing something. And I just want to be able to have a camera out there that's small, that's compact, that takes a nice photo, and something that's simple something that doesn't need, you know, a whole lot of stuff, it can get knocked about a little bit because, you know, these trips that I go on, yeah, things get knocked about a bit sometimes, you know.
Yeah. Well, if you're rolling your pack off at the edge of cliffs, that's going to happen.
Wow.
So yeah, you know, you just gotta take something that can take a bit of damage. But the photos, yeah, like I really live for them, and for me, it's a way of getting to know the place because it's, you know, it's often you're waiting for the light, we're waiting for the conditions, you know, and you're out there for a long time waiting. In fact, there's this old photographer's adage that says, you know, the landscape photographer is standing on this hill with his tripod set up, and he's standing by his camera. And this walker, you know, happens to be walking past and goes up to the photographer and says, "Oh, good day, Mr. Photographer, what are you doing?" And the photographer says to the walker, he says, "Oh, good day, Mr. Walker, I'm waiting." And the walker says, "Well, what are you waiting for?" And the photographer says, "Well, I'm not quite sure. It hasn't happened yet." So it's that thing of, you know, you would be, and Dombrovsky's, you know, one of the famous Tassie wilderness photographers of the last, you know, couple of generations. He was famous for going to a place and just sitting there and just waiting for days, as long as it took, until the light was right, until the landscape revealed that inner element that, you know, that showcases it, that kind of shows an aspect of it that you don't see every day. That's a special moment, you know, and the only way to do that is to intercept it, to anticipate it, to be there, you know, to be there and with your camera ready. And so, you know, 90% of is just being there at the right time with your camera, you know, ready to take the photo, and then, you know, the rest, yeah, should just kind of fall into place, really.
It's a pretty zen approach, actually. I think setting yourself up in the right place, and then basically, if you're in the right place, then it's only a matter of time before you're there at the right time, I guess.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, the question is, how long have you got to wait, and how much food have you got left? Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. Oh, yeah, I love the passion for photography, and we'll most certainly be putting all the links to all of your websites and Instagram and everything in the show notes, so that people can easily jump in there and find their way around, because, yeah, we do want to share all of that. Also to the
film?
Winter Blade film as well. So that's something pretty
Well,
spectacular.
look, that'd be great, you know, if you can, you know, help out with that. But then also for those people that are in Tassie, you know, in Hobart, yeah, this exhibition opening is next Friday night on the 16th of August.
All right, we better get cracking and get this episode out.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, that's right. I wasn't quite sure when you guys are going to put it up. So, but yeah, yeah. So, anyways, well, you know, for me, that's kind of nice, and just see what happens after that. You know, the last year it's just been recovery from my last trip. You know, so it'd be nice once the exhibition's wrapped up. You know, that's kind of the completion of that project.
Yep.
That I can kind of take a breath and, yeah, think about the next one.
What is that?
Oh, the next one's a secret one. I can't tell you. Sorry.
Does it exist in your imagination yet?
Oh, it's very real. It's happening.
Oh wow, this is great. I love it. Then can we make a date that however long it takes that we get back on this podcast and hear all about that sometime in the future?
Well, yeah, it'll probably be next year then.
Oh yeah, no, I understand. Considering
yeah.
you spend years planning stuff, I'm not expecting to talk to you next week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we'll see how long this one takes, but it shouldn't take that long. But I've said that before.
Hey, I want to kind of I've been identifying a theme through some of the stories you've been telling us, and some little nuggets of wisdom and certain things that you've been saying. And I want to kind of put it to you and put this question to you and see if you've asked yourself this question, or if you've actually looked at yourself and realized this is happening. But when you say things like you didn't want to take an EPIRB to feel what it was like, you did a section of the trail specifically without GPS and phone, you just wanted to use a compass. It feels to me like there's some kind of longing to really get to the edge of that fear, or to find some limit that you're still struggling to come to terms with? It sounds to me like you're not quite there yet. Would that be correct?
No, like I feel like in a lot of ways I thought, the Tassie Traverse would be the trip where I kind of earned my stripes in a way, as a bushwalker. And the fact that I kind of needed assistance on that trip, it just told me that there's a bit more that I need to learn still.
Yep.
So, for me, I guess as an outdoors, as a wilderness traveler in Tassie, I'm interested in Tassie. Like, I'm interested in the landscapes here, and I want to get to know them in a way that I can access anywhere in Tassie. I can go anywhere in Tassie, whether that's a wild mountain top, or whether that's deep down in a cave, or whether it's down a wild river. I want to be able to get to these places just with a compass. So, my lifetime is going to be dedicated to getting to know the landscapes well enough that eventually I can venture anywhere without a map, to the point where I just get to know the lands. This is what I'm aiming to do. And the only way to do it is to spend time out there. And so, it's kind of like, as you gain skills in the discipline, whatever it is, you need less and less stuff to help you along your way. So when you start out, you think, I'm going to get all this stuff, I'm going to buy a new tent, I'm going to buy a new stove. And once I've got that equipment, I'm going to be able to do these things. And what you slowly realize is that it's your skills that really keep you alive out there. It's your knowledge, it's your experience. And sure, there's, you do need the gear in certain scenarios, because there's no other way. Mm-hmm. But then knowing how to use that and learning, ways of trimming down on your kit so that you're not necessarily taking as many things. So, such things as a GPS, or such things as, spare food. And, you're really committing yourself to just being able to navigate and cover ground, within a certain time frame. And just knowing, having the confidence in your abilities to know that you're capable of these things and doing them consistently. And what this builds a relationship with your landscape and a trust of it. You go from viewing it as a nemesis, as an enemy that you need to, a foe that you need to defeat, and you feel like you've arrived home, somewhere where you're comfortable, somewhere that's beautiful and inspiring, and somewhere where you're just happy to spend time.
Yeah,
taking it all in.
One of my favorite ways to look at the wilderness, or Mother Nature, or however you want to frame it, is that when you enter the wilderness, Mother Nature doesn't give a shit whether you live, you die, you have a good time, you have a bad time. It doesn't care whether you have the experience of your life or you don't. She doesn't care. She's just there doing what she does, and you're the one that needs to extract what you need to from that.
Well, yeah, that's right. The mountains couldn't care less if you were there or not. But, you care about the mountains. That's why you go out there. So then you just got to phrase the argument in an acceptable way that's not going to kill you. But yeah, it's one of those things, like when you're out there, it's just so amazing, and so I guess, what I want to get out of it is eventually get to a point where I can rely on my skill set, in a way that I trust it, that I know, I can go out there and be on my own and go anywhere, challenging, and have the skills that to have the confidence that I can deal with whatever is going to come up. And in that process, you just get, the only way to do it is to anticipate what's going to happen next. Like when you're following, a ridge line where you can't see ahead, you're in a scrub, you just got to have a sense for which way to go. Yeah. And it's not necessarily anything obvious. Often it'll be a very subtle little thing that will tell you, I'm a bit too high, I got to drop down, or there's got to be a creek if I go down this way, or I'm going to find shelter, or there's going to be less scrubby this way. And these are all little things that you tune into the more time you spend out there. And that's what gives you the confidence to go off track, is because you can read the landscape.
Yep.
And recognize those little things. Yeah. Which at first, you just go barging through, and you end up in the thick of the scrub, and you're like, how the fuck did I end up here? And now I'm stuck in it and got to get out. And then later, you go, oh, I'm not going to go into that thicket. That looks bad, And then you go around, and then you go, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Is this where your little mantra stemmed from? Everything you just said there folds pretty nicely into that little tagline on your website that says, know the wild, know yourself.
Well, that sums it up, It's kind of like you spend time out there and you get to know the place, but through that process of, I don't know what you want to call it, just, getting lost and then finding yourself, you grow as a person, and you get to, you don't know how you're going to act until you find that edge. Yeah, finding that edge to me is so important, of that edge where, I define it as putting yourself in a situation where your life depends on the decisions that you make.
Yep.
And that's when it kicks home, that's when you actually focus. That's when you draw that attention in and you pinpoint it to a very sharp focus and you apply it. You put yourself in a position where you got to have a level head, where you got to be like, all right, there's a situation here and I've got to get myself out of here. And that's that process. You can't simulate it. You've got to put yourself in it. You got to plunge. You got to plunge into it. It's like rock climbing. You might be on a cliff and you've got a move ahead of you that you don't know if you can do, and you just got to do it because that's the only way to go through is to do it. And when after you've done it, you think, "Fuck, I didn't know I could do that." And so then you think, "Well, what else can I do?"
Yeah. Mate, I don't think I could have wrapped the podcast up any better than you just did, to be honest. Craig, is there anything you want to say before I let Andy get back to his cup of tea and warm bed?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for coming and chatting to us. 84 days in the wilderness. I think you've definitely earned your stripes, mate.
Yeah, you're pretty hard on yourself, mate.
No, it's been great to hear about your mindset and your passion, mate, and just wanting to be out there in the wild. I think you're a legend.
Yeah, mate. It absolutely fantastic. Well, that's not even summing it up. There's got to be a bigger word than that. Talking to you has been a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and it's inspired me, and I know that people are listening. It's just going to blow their minds. Yeah, good on you, mate, for sharing your time with us as well. I really appreciate it, brother.
Well, yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for chatting to me. And, glad we bumped into each other up at the Cradle Mountain Film Fest. Happy adventures. I'm sure there's more to come for all of us and, for the listeners involved. And that's it, just get out there and do it and respect the places you're going to. And that's, to me, is becoming, the kind of key driving theme of this century is, we're very good at taking, but we've got to start giving something back. And, by having these conversations and connecting with other outdoors people, I think you can bring back that connection to nature that is really missing now in the big cities. Keep doing the good work that you're doing. And, it's really good chatting to you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate that. We will talk to you again, and we will probably see you again. I don't know if we'll accompany you on a hike, especially if you're planning it, but we might just catch up for a beer or something, mate.
No, you got to go on the walk before you get to have the beer. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, all right. We'll do our walk. We'll meet you at the end of your walk.
We'll walk down to the pub. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, mate. Take care of yourself, fella. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Thanks, fellas. Catch ya.
See you,
have
mate.
a good one.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, we'd really appreciate your ratings and comments if you can spare the time. If you'd like to know more about Hike or Die TV and keep track of our adventures around Australia, make sure you drop by HikeordieTV.com. That's where you'll find all the information you'll need to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or Pinterest. As always, we appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.